Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. It's Tuesday, September 12, 2017. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Alec? Present. Mr. Madsen?
Here.
Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Hodges?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
Here. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Moving on to invocation. Councilman Johnson, please.
Can everyone bow their heads and have a moment of silence, first and foremost, for September 11th and all those who gave their lives to such a tragedy that happened here in America. Also, I would like to have us think about the different natural disasters that's been happening here on our land, Harvey, Irma, also the earthquake in Mexico, and send our prayers out to the families and loved ones who were affected. And let us pray that they have the ability to recover. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Destiny Hodges.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, wow. We have a patriot over there. Moving on to communications. I'm honored to have the Honorable Judge Sarah Talley here with us this evening. She's going to do the swearing in of our newly appointed council member, Mr. David Madsen. Judge Sarah Talley and Mr. David Madsen, please come here to the front. And before you swear him in, Judge, and Mr. Madsen, I need you both to sign these particular papers. What is that?
My signature. I read like a doctor.
I know. Thank you, Judge. Thank you very, very much.
President Williams, members of City Council, I'm honored to be here this evening to swear in the oath of office to my friend Dave Madsen. I know you will be an excellent addition to the Harrisburg City Council. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, David A. Madsen,
I, David A. Madsen,
do solemnly swear that I shall support, obey, and defend
I shall support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and that I shall, to the best of my ability,
I shall, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties of my office
discharge the duties of my office
as a member of City Council of the City of Harrisburg,
as a member of
City Council
City Council
of the City of
of the City of
Harrisburg,
Harrisburg,
with fidelity,
with fidelity,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Here, Mr. Madsen. Thank you, Judge Saratelli. Welcome, council member,
Thank you.
Mr. Madsen. Moving on to presentation by the Harrisburg Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, Madam President, honorable city council members, Captain Oliveira, anybody?
Good evening, everyone. One of the items that was brought up was the crime blotter. So what we did was we created a presentation to walk everyone through the various crime blotters that we currently have. When we speak of crime blotters, not everyone is certain what it actually is. So it allows the public to view the crime through the internet. The public can see what's occurring in their neighborhoods or throughout different neighborhoods within the city. The data could be sorted by the types of crimes, and it can actually be found on 3 different sites. First one is spot crime. This is actually the web link to it. This site was fed by our original record management system, which was Metro. This is what it currently looks like. So we feed this information to them, and they actually put this on their site. So this is open to the public, and they can access this information. You can also select the dates and the times and the types of crimes that occur that you want to view. Select specific sections of the city to review it. You can actually put in an address, and you can get alerts. So if you're concerned about safety surrounding your home, you can put a 1 mile radius, 2 mile radius, 3 mile radius. So all the crimes that occur there will actually go to you as an alert to let you know. This was no longer supported by the RMS, and we've taken steps to make sure it stays on here, but not only on here, but we've added 2 other locations where you can find this crime. The next one is our Crime Watch. Crime Watch portal, we use this quite a bit. That is the website to it. That will take you to that site. And it does a couple different things for us. As you can see, it does crime mapping, news releases, camera registry, and the tips. Crime mapping, this is how it would look when you would actually go into the web portal. It's also an application. So you can get it on your phone, you can download it, and you can view this directly from your phone. If you were to touch any one of these, it would give you some information as far as the date, the time, and what kind of crime occurred there. Our news releases. It's important for us because this is our outlet that we can release all these different types of news pieces out to the media. The results of that is that we can control our own message that goes out to the public. Limits the amount of press conference we currently have to major events. We're able to distribute photographs out to the public. That was one of the things that was very difficult for us for missing persons and things like that, is getting those photographs out. It's also tied to the Twitter account and the Facebook pages, so that information goes out through social media as well. Do you have a question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Camera registry. This is not what it is. When people start thinking of camera registry, this is the idea that they get. What the camera registry is if you have video cameras at the home or in the business, you're letting us know through Crime Watch, hey, I have a camera. These cameras see this. So you can tell us I have 2 internal cameras and 3 outside. It looks at the sidewalk. It looks at the side of my house. Here's my name. This is the address, and this is how it can be contacted. This is my video system. This is how long I keep the video for. And it allows us to, when a crime occurs, for us to go out to those locations, identify the people very quickly, know what kind of systems that they're utilizing and what kind of time frame we have to get that video from them. Crime tips. We get these almost daily. This gives us gives the public the ability to send information to us. You can send that information anonymously. You can identify who you are, so that way we can have a communication back and forth. This is all done through the mobile app. You don't have to be on a tabletop. You can be on your mobile app and submit the tips. You can also submit video and also photographs through that application as well. The last one is Raids Online. It's through LexisNexis. That is the actual web page on it. This draws from our record management system and gets uploaded every single morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is what it looks like. You'll see different icons representing different things. If you were to click on those icons, it gives you a date, a time, gives you what kind of crime it is. You can also put in an address, whatever address you'd like, and you will also get alerts to it. You actually specify what's the distance. You want to know everything within a couple blocks or a couple miles. So it gives you all the alerts. You can research this by crimes, by area, date and time as well. And it's updated daily. Now, one of the things that I think individuals were looking for as the blotters, some people just want a list. This is the Raids Online. what I have in here are a lot of the summary offenses. If you were to go here and go to the data grid, it actually lists the incident number, types of crime, date and time, the address. If you look at the addresses, there are some X's. The first one is 3XX Hummel Street. That's on the 300 block of Hummel Street. We do that on purpose so that we're not giving out any specific addresses to any victims or suspects. You can search on this side for types of crimes, for the dates. This can go all the way back to November of 2015. So you can search any kind of crime that you'd like to do there. And this is where you would actually put your address and you can see the distance that you can put in. So that is in a nutshell the presentation. The presentation I gave, I can actually email to your office so it can be distributed to you so that way you have those. The presentation can also be given to Ryan to put on the city's website if you'd so like.
Okay. Any questions, council members?
I would also suggest, as far as like the presentation, I'm not saying that you have to do it. Maybe it's something that can be worked through with Joyce or whatever. But even that voiceover to explain it the way you did is really helpful because someone can kind of listen through it and kind of get an idea of what this actually does, rather than having to go through and kind of click around. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It brings a little bit more presentation to it, and especially about the slide on the camera registry. Like if you don't have your voice to describe the camera registry, people are going to look at that slide and think that's what it is, you know. So we probably definitely need some type of voiceover.
We can get with Channel 20 and with Ryan and we can work out something.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, council members?
Yeah, so if I know that someone, John Doe, was in contact with law enforcement in February of 2016 and they were not seen again, could I search John Doe's name and?
No.
Okay.
No, this is for incidents. Ooh, changed kind of bit. But I can go in here to 2016, say January, to February last year. That gives me, yeah, I did it to September.
It's got to shrunk that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do this to March 31st. Of 17. That's fair. It keeps changing the
yeah. You have to,
day.
I think you have to click on the date,
Yes.
like actually.
The bottom one.
There we go. So we go back to the map. We can actually pick which crimes we want to see.
Yeah, but
Here.
what if you're like not, like you're looking for a person, like you know that person's been missing the last time that anyone heard of them, they were in contact with law enforcement, and that's all you know.
I'm not sure if this lists missing person. It does not list missing person.
Well, I imagine missing person is someone who was reported missing, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily, so someone who came in contact with law enforcement, nobody ever,
But
you
that's
know.
also not considered a crime. This is actual crime.
Okay, so my understanding was like the blotter was supposed to be a little wider than crime. Is that not true?
I don't.
Do we have a definition?
The blotter's always been the blotter.
Yeah, it's-
The
we've
first site, not that site, the first site, the old-fashioned way, this is the way the blotter has always been. So
Yeah.
it's always been.
Well, no, with the old site, I could search someone, and and usually I'd find them. So like even if there was no arrest and if there was nothing, like, you know, someone came out to whatever and nothing happened.
For crime, people were behind and it's downgraded to the system.
Mhm.
They're looking for a missing person. NCIC has that information, but you're not looking to NCIC.
Yeah, we do, missing persons reports through Crime Watch going out when people have been missing for some time, usually 48 hours, because the majority of our missing persons
Right.
get found within 48 hours. Or someone who has medical disabilities or something to that aspect, or a youth that are missing, we put those immediately out. So they can go through our Crime Watch, and you can actually search the names there.
Yeah.
You can't search the
But
names
yeah, I'm
there.
not talking about someone who was reported missing, like as lost, right? This is someone who, like, let's say, neighbors saw the last time they came in contact.
See, and that brings up an interesting situation. An adult can legally go missing.
Right.
I've investigated several where the adult left this area. Individuals who were concerned about them tried to report him missing. I found the individual living in another state,
Right.
and I verified through a local police department that they were fine. They chose not to notify anyone here, and
Right.
I cannot notify
Right.
them if that's not their choice.
Right.
So that's where we start getting into those sticky situations, so we can't release that
Yeah,
information.
no, but no, you can, because that's what the feds do. So I know, so at least federally you can, and that's why, like, I think, because we had this discussion about definitionally what goes in a blotter, like what makes a blotter, and and I remember having this discussion with the open records people, and so the way you guys had it, like before 2013, like where you could go online and you could find the person, like even if there was an incident, that like there was like a name there.
I'll have to research that, because I don't,
Well, I think we don't
didn't
have
provide
a.
them names.
I used to be. I don't. Maybe it was by accident.
It's the day that they provided. in
Yes.
2013.
It's a little it's a little different, but I know what she's saying. But I think the ultimate question is that really the standard of a blotter? Like, if what are the other neighboring police departments or even police departments in the state of Pennsylvania? Are they providing names or aren't they providing names? You know what I'm saying? I think we
For
would.
non-crimes? This is a crime law.
No, she's not talking about for non-crime. She's talking about for
Well,
no,
I'm
she's
thinking-
talking about for interaction with law
Yeah,
enforcement.
yeah.
And that's the way, and that's, so someone makes a call, and they used to kind of list that person's name and whatever information that was there. She just talked about the interaction, whether if it was crime or non-crime. So
So, if I may, because you talked about this with Ms. Daniels, I could not find a uniform definition about what is there a set for it? This is what makes up a crime blotter. The general one I could find federally was that it's the incidence of the daily activity of a police report of a public department that they keep on a temporary basis, actually. That was, basically the calls that came in, the contacts that they had. That is interfered with or interacted with a whole bunch of other things, including the fact that you're not supposed to reveal information about complaints. So if I call and said, my neighbor is intimidating me, but I don't want to be named, that's not supposed to be able to be Neil Grover called, because I just asked to make that complaint anonymously. So I don't know, I know what you're saying, I just don't know that there's an accepted universal definition of blotter that I could find. I know you referenced one, but I could not find a place where that is.
Yeah, and I never double checked it. I just know that it became really helpful. We're having a lot of raids in the city, and I used to be able to tell someone, oh, that's
Are you talking about individuals who have been arrested?
Just raids for people who are undocumented, right, or suspected to be undocumented. So it used to be like Harrisburg police would go out sometimes with federal enforcement, so I could see on the blotter. Yeah, so I used to be able to see on the blotter, the Harrisburg picked up, whereas now I can't see that, so I can't tell somebody,
But you just indicated what it was. They were picked up, so there was a violation of some sort. So they were taken into custody.
So what's the crime?
It could be a federal crime. We may have to detain him at the time. We may have
Right.
had to have detained him at the time, because the local jurisdiction would have to submit the paperwork for that. So, but they're still being detained. If they went out and spoke to someone in their residence, we would not put that information out, because it's actually violating the privacies of the citizens by putting all that information out there if they have not been taken into custody.
So the way you guys used to do it before,
As I indicated before, I have to research that, because I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
how it was done before.
yeah, because, being undocumented isn't a crime, right? So the only time you're accompanying someone is because
Not locally. not local.
Right, right. So you're accompanying a
But it's a
federal
federal
agent.
crime.
Yeah. It's not a crime. It's not a crime. Right? So they may have warrants to other crimes, but not for being out of status. So like in the past, like I said, I used to be able to find that and be able to answer questions, and now I can't. And it's a pain in the butt for me.
Okay.
I'm
And then-
Yeah, I think it
totally
would
not
be-
clear what you're asking. So I don't understand. I want to help, but
Yeah.
you're saying you want a report of people who have an interaction with law enforcement who
So-
did not commit a crime and were not in violation of any local ordinance. I mean, the police would have nothing to do with that.
Right.
It sounds like a
Yes.
daily
It used to
activity.
I
be-
believe that you're saying, ma'am, is that before when the city police was
With ICE, yeah.
and they used to do what they used to do, just standing by.
Right.
Supporting them.
Yeah.
And they came up in the blotter, and so.
Yeah.
To locate them.
Yeah.
So now you can do that.
Right, right.
I understand what your question is. and,
Yeah.
We'll find out the answer why it's not showing up.
Or, yeah,
And things like that.
yeah. That would be really helpful because it would be just easy to search.
And just another thing on this topic, on our website, I know we're updating our website, but it says like, it talks about the whole transition, and we're working on the issues, and once it's fixed, it'll be updated regularly. I think we need to take that notice down and put whatever we're doing is what we're doing. You see what I'm saying? Because it gives the people the impression that something else is about to pop up, or like the old thing is going to pop up, but it still has that notice on our website. It's all on my phone.
We'll get in contact with Ryan because he
Yeah.
actually has control of that.
Yeah, so we just want to get that down because I remember when I first started, I was getting questions from people saying, "Hey, I see this notice." People are expecting that the old blotter system is going to pop up, which in reality is not. So we have to kind of, let people know what it is and what is actually happening.
Spot crime, which was our blotter, still exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, whatever the little printout report was, that's what people used to use. Some people. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like
It has like,
I never used it, so I don't know what you're talking about.
it just gave out a list of, it almost was almost like a daily activity. It gave out every single phone call. It was like a PDF file. It had the little lettering city of Harrisburg. It was like, I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot.
We can get with our IT to see if they can find.
But I think it was generated by Metro. I think that's why it
It
disappeared.
was.
Yeah.
But IT would be able to find some of the old batch files that were sent out for us to kind of piece together what was sent.
Okay.
Who uploads this information?
This type of information, it's automatically done from our current record management system to both Raids Online and Crime Watch.
It's done on a daily basis, right?
Yes. Spot crime is done once a week.
I have a question. Having interacted with the material here, how much does crime vary? Is there certain amounts of, like, say, assault in certain areas versus other areas?
Well, at the
Or is
time,
it, just there's crime everywhere and it varies?
it varies. It does. It varies between
Yours is there.
times of the year. You'll get more crimes in certain areas when school's in, when school's out, when it's hot, when it's cold. So you do have that. Once we moved to this process, we did partner with Penn State University, with Dr. Jonathan Lee. What he does is he does some hot mapping, hot spotting with this. We've utilized that to focus some of our attention to certain details because of that. So we have used different things to address crime. But yes, you can actually utilize this to see where crime migrates from different times, different hours, things of that nature.
Okay. Mr.
I got
Majors.
a quick question and comment. So I understand we're going through all of our IT upgrades and updating the websites. So right now we have 3 different ways to get in contact, to interact with police data.
Yes.
It's Spot Crime, HPD.com, which sends you to Dauphin County Crime Watch, and then the Community Crime Map.
which is LexisNexis.
Right. Are we going to make sure that all of those things are prominently on our Bureau of Police website? Because when you go to it, you don't necessarily see links to those three things. And I think it would be more user-friendly if, when you go to the Harrisburg Bureau of Police website, then if you want to interact with any of that data, you have a link right from the police website to go to Community Crime Map, Dauphin County Crime Watch, and Spot Crime. An additional, could you just, I guess for public record, make sure that, give us the Twitter and the Twitter name and Facebook name so folks have, if they want to be able to interact with that information, that they can contact you all. I think it's, in a day of social media where, when folks want to be able to interact, if we at least have that information available to the public, then they can know where to contact police if they're using social media or anything like that. Just in a way, just to, if we're going to continue to work on all of our, community interactions, that's one way that the folks can interact as well. But I think a lot of this information is helpful.
Your Twitter is at HPD Detective, right?
Yes.
And he posts,
Right.
So that is the Twitter account for the communication for the police, and then he links to Crime Watch all of the press releases and everything, so that's the Twitter account to follow.
Okay.
And then the Facebook page does the same. We have a Facebook page, so everything we place on Crime Watch actually gets put on that page as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have just a follow-up on Crime Watch. Is there a way for people to receive notifications about crime happening in their neighborhood?
Yes.
Can you show people how to do that? I think that'd be good to see.
You can do it on that one too, right?
Sign up for alerts, and then you would register. So you would use a username, your address, and these are all the individual things that it would need and require, creates the account for you, and then you get the requests. All right. As far as the Crime Watch, as I said, we utilize this specifically to send out all news releases. You can go in here for arrests, warrants, incidents, cases, news. It's missing a piece up there for the map. This is being upgraded. I believe by the end of this month, they're going to have the new version up and running. It's going to have some tweaks to this piece, but it's going to have even more so to the mobile apps. Any other questions?
Just one. So do all of the websites or web tools have mobile apps, or is it just?
LexisNexis does.
Yeah, right.
And Crime Watch does.
And Crime Watch. And Spot Crime.
It's not.
Okay.
That's a web-based.
Okay.
I have one last question. The municipalities that have used this, have they seen a drop in crime, or what's been the effect since they've used it?
That I do not know. I would have to contact Crime Watch itself to see what it is. It's a double-edged sword. When police get notified of different crimes that are occurring, they go out, investigate, and they arrest those individuals. So you'll see a spike in crime, which is when we do the hot spotting, when we do saturations, you'll see a spike of crime in that area when the officers are now targeting that area. So you see some crime, you see a spike of crime during the saturation, then you see the overall reduction in crime. So you'll start seeing crime rise as far as this piece, but then you'll see eventual reduction. So once we start utilizing all these things in conjunction, you'll start seeing some effects.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain. That it? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Well, okay, they were prepared to address the COPS grant if you wanted that as well. if you want to save that for another time, we can save it for another time.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
It's my captain's birthday today.
I know that's why I was
I
going to
did
say happy
bring
birthday
you
to
in.
Captain. It's your birthday, and I know you're looking forward to getting out of here.
I will send I'll send this presentation out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we move on to courtesy of the floor, turn the meeting over to Mr. Grover.
Thank you, Madam President. You had requested, the council had requested an opinion, which is drafted, but we had a copier problem coming down here on the Sunshine Act and public participation, in particular in public meetings. It's a little nuanced. There's a piece of it that's black and white, and there's a piece of it that's nuanced, which is often the way the law works. The Sunshine Act makes plain that City Council must have public participation at every special and regular legislative session, that it can opt to have it at the beginning of those meetings, that the public participation by the statute is by residents or by taxpayers or by both. The words residents and taxpayers are not defined in the Sunshine Act, so under the normal interpretation, they get their usual meanings in normal use. So residents is pretty plain. You live within the boundaries of the city. Taxpayers, from my opinion, would be people that pay taxes to the city of Harrisburg, as opposed to a general taxpayer who pays the state or the U.S. The city council has the option of saying just residents on an issue, just taxpayers, or both. What's important in most things in the law when courts look at them is how have you done it, and do you do it differently for different people? Traditionally, as I understand how city council has worked from the years I've been both a citizen, counsel for city council, and then counsel for the city, is that one, the presiding officer, whether that be at the president of council or a chair of a committee meeting, has had the option of how they're going to do it. They have the option within the rules to provide a time limit, which is both in the statute and I believe it's in council rules, to provide those limits. They basically have the first call on that. Traditionally, though, it has been basically both. It's very hard mechanically to say, are you a taxpayer, and how do you demonstrate that at a meeting? So traditionally, it's been both. The important thing in the law is that the city council at public meetings do it consistently. That's when it's inconsistent is when you get in trouble with the court. That's the issue. So if you're going to have a rule, and you can adopt a rule for a special meeting, in that if you normally have 20 attendants and you have 80 attendants, you can limit the time to a minute or 30 seconds. You can do that just so the government can move on with its business, because you're doing the people's business. But you have to be just consistent with the policy that you do. But you can limit it, and the law has been pretty clear. You can limit to the matter that is at issue before the council at that time, or other matters of public importance. If the crowd was too big, you'd actually have the right to limit it and defer some of it to another day. But that I don't ever have known being done in the city of Harrisburg. They do it in the city of Philadelphia. I've never known anywhere else in the state that they do it. But basically, that's the opinion, that you can limit it to both. We have limited it to both. I'd recommend that you continue to limit it to both. That would be the Law Bureau's recommendation. But it is proper if someone is here who's not a taxpayer in the city, that they can be stopped from speaking. And that has, but if you're going to do it, you should do it consistently. And you should do it, you could adopt part of your council rules, which you create your own rules, and you can suspend your own rules. But the council should, as a whole, make a determination if they're going to change their rules, if they want to have some special way. But right now, it has traditionally always been the chair who makes that call in all of these, whether it's a committee chair or whether it's the council president, who's ever the presiding officer has made that call. And traditionally, it's been both. So,
okay. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up question, if I could. The consistency piece. Consistency piece against legislative sessions versus committee meetings, or both, or how are you looking at that from a consistency standpoint?
Yeah, courts are looking basically for evidence. Basically, it comes up when someone's saying, I've been treated unfairly. So that's how it gets dissected. So when I say consistency, it's out of court opinions. Courts look for evidence when someone says they've been treated illegally, that, how do they look at that? They look at, well, how do you normally do it? And you could have it different for committee meetings than you do for legislative
That's what I'm
sessions.
saying, if you're drawing that consistency standpoint.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the
So
same
say
for both
legislative
kinds.
sessions, committee.
Absolutely. And that's why you're allowed to do public comment at the end of a committee meeting, because you're not voting.
Right.
Because the act provides you to provide public comment before you act on a piece of legislation.
Okay.
So and there was a period of time where city council used to provide public comment at the beginning of a meeting and at the end of the meeting.
at the end of the
And I,
meeting.
for one, am glad that you changed that particular practice. And they had two different topics. So you could do only legislation at the beginning and only public interest at the end. And some places still do that.
So as far as consistency and us being judged as a body, like if one presiding chair wants to do it another way, and another presiding chair in a committee form decides to do it another way, isn't there a lack of consistency amongst the body? Or the consistency is saying letting the presiding chair
If the consistency
decide?
is to let the chair have the discretion and not say this chair for this committee has to do it this way, but that's where the practice, they use the word practice. What is the practice? And that's been the practice long before I think President Williams was the president of the council. That has been the practice in
So
Harrisburg.
what if the presiding chair decides to change his mind from every now and then? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, is it presiding chair decide to say, hey, I'm going to do it like this for forever, or a presiding chair can say,
Yeah, that is when you get in trouble.
Yeah.
When the presiding officer starts changing what they're doing, that is there. And some bodies have actually voted and had rules. They've amended their rules so that they're all in the same place, or at least the majority says this is how we're going to do it. It doesn't happen a lot. The reality is there's not a lot of court cases where this has gone all the way through. Usually what happens is that a claim is made. Usually it's by an impact-related representation by someone who believes they were shut down. Frankly, usually it comes up either First Amendment or land disputes are the two in the cases, and it gets resolved without a court decision by the changing of a rule to the adoption of a rule of the body. That's how it's played itself out. So the courts haven't weighed in heavily in Pennsylvania on what the ultimate result is. But consistency is always, frankly, the best defense in a court, because they could say, even if you're doing something wrong, you're not doing it unfairly. You're just, they can say, I want you to change it in the way you do in the future, but we're not going to penalize you because you've had a set of practices and you've done them consistently.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No? Any more questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to be consistent then, because I was allowing the residents of this city to have an opportunity to come before this council, and I didn't want to put a time limit on it. But since they, reacted in the manner that they did when they came here before this council, I'm going to put a 2-minute limit on everybody coming to the courtesy of the floor, the mic. So I'll be consistent. Okay?
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Or can I just bring it up in new business?
Pardon me?
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
in regards?
go ahead.
This is a question amongst us, I guess, for a discussion. Like, is there a way that, as far as even developing that consistency, like amongst council, that we can just incorporate it within our council rules or whatever it's going to be?
You can do that if you want, 2 minutes. But I'm the presiding chair, so if you do it as your chair of your committee, public safety, you
I'm
can,
just talking about just for public participation in general, defining that in our council rules. So there's no, so the public doesn't have any confusion of saying, we don't know what the presiding chair, whether if it's a committee format or a legislative format, this is what we define as public
and since we did
participation.
change it to the work session, we certainly can do that. You can specify that by changing the council rules, but since we don't have committee meetings, we have work sessions. You certainly can do that.
So your rules are passed by resolution. And, the body is always free to revisit a question of its own authority. But I will tell you that this is where inconsistency comes in. If you change the rules in the middle of a heated topic, you now have proven that you're acting inconsistently.
But I'm not acting inconsistent because
Right.
I'm not acting inconsistent, excuse me.
I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying that.
It was prior to this, everyone had a 2-minute limit. I deferred from that because individuals did not have an opportunity to speak about the issues and concerns that they had. 2 minutes wasn't enough time to get their point across to council. So I allowed them the extra time to speak to council. But since we had so much confusion about it, I revert back to the 2 minute.
It sounds like inconsistency.
Madam President,
Yes.
may I make make a comment? I think that if we're going to be looking to make any formal changes to our rules, that it may be better to do that at the beginning of a council session, which would start again in January of 2018. So if we want to ensure consistency throughout the remainder of this council session, we can keep the rule as is. And if we're looking to make any substantive changes to the way that we allow for public comment in legislative sessions, then we should make sure that it's something that is voted on and made public at the beginning of the council session. I think one area where we tend to want to make sure, that members of the public have an opportunity to address their issues or bring their issues to council. That can be done in a number of ways. I mean, I know all of us also not only hear from the public when they come to legislative sessions, but through, email and social media posts and et cetera. So one thing that I know that, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but we try to ensure that the public has an opportunity to address their concerns. And I think we've even gotten to a point where we've allowed members of the public to, during communications, speak before council at length if they want to have a longer discussion than would warrant a normal public comment period. So I think for us to be consistent, we can work to address that moving forward, but we need to ensure that as we do it, we're consistent across the board. I mean, we don't want to keep anyone from, we don't want to have, I don't want the appearance of keeping anyone in the public silence that's a taxpayer and resident of the city of Harrisburg. So if we can clarify those things moving forward, I think that'd be.
I don't think we're not trying to keep anyone from being heard or keep them from addressing council. I just feel that, as the chair, and the council has the rules as the chair, and I am the chair of the legislative session. Now, when you have your individual work sessions and you chair that committee, you can do as such, but at this point, I want to go back to the 2 minute. And I think I have that right.
I don't think there's anyone disagreeing with that. Yeah, and to Mr. Major's point, it's a pretty common traditional model that legislative bodies at the beginning of their new session, it's 2 years long, adopt or re-adopt their rules.
Right. And we can do that.
City of Harrisburg hasn't done that traditionally.
Sure.
It's every few years, but.
We're looking to make changes, but I think we can make that a practice that we,
Okay.
even if we don't make any changes, that we say, hey, we make it a public document again at the beginning of the session, that we say these are the rules that we are going to operate under for a 2-year period, just so that there isn't any confusion as we move forward.
That's fine.
What the rules are.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, moving on to courtesy of the floor. Anyone to my right, please come to the mic.
Good evening, everybody. Let me pull this down. Good evening, everybody. You can hear me?
Yes, yes. Here, bring it down some. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Kim Thomas. I live at 2330 Green Street. Council and mayor. My son got killed on August 7th, 2016. The problem that I'm standing here now, because I have saw the officer constantly. It's like we're rubbing elbows. It's not looking good. 2 weeks ago, the same officer that killed my son came on Forster Street with 3 other officers and pulled his gun out again while everybody was around. My daughter lived 2 doors down from the person that they pulled the guns on. I'm like, why do I have to see him almost every other day? He works the same time. That's not a good look. We're rubbing elbows. Every time I see him, I cry. Every time I see him, I'm scared. My daughter calls me crying, literally, has her FaceTime on. This cop still has his gun out again. You done killed somebody. And the place where he went at, I guess the guy had a knife out. So that's just like, what can be done about this situation? Do I have to constantly see this cop? Do my children have to keep on seeing this cop? Why is he still in our neighborhood? Why didn't he get a transfer? That's not a good look. I'm scared. I'm scared somebody's gonna get hurt. And I don't want nobody to get hurt. I'm not looking to hurt him. But as he pulled out the gun, my daughter walked up to him and said, "Are you Officer so-and-so?" He said, "Yes." She said, "You killed my brother." Now he has a gun out. Now how about if he would've got scared and shot her? Now I lost 2 kids. What could somebody tell me? So I wish y'all think about this. Something needs to be done. I don't know who to really talk to about this, but I'm looking into it. But something has to be done because my son hasn't seen him yet. My other daughter hasn't seen him yet. Who knows how people are thinking? Y'all know what happened. And I'm not going to talk about exactly what happened, but y'all know what happened. And y'all know he don't belong in the street, especially if he pulls out a gun again like that. So I hope nobody gets hurt where I'm being out here again saying, you know what, I told you so. So please look into that for me, please.
I will, Ms. Thomas, thank you. In that chair. You want to talk to her afterwards? Find out what's going on. Thank you.
Madam President, City Council, my name is William Carlock, and Vietnam veteran. I'm just concerned about my property, which is...
Your address, sir? Mr. Carlock, your address?
I'm at 406 Minnick Street.
Okay.
But the property that I'm talking about is at 344 Minnick Street. And I have some pictures.
Okay, do you want to give them to the... Oh, okay. All right, thank you. All right.
The house in present has been there for about 20 years, vacant. And it's been squatters in there, and it's just it's really a mess. And we got property, and we want to maintain some kind of, residual with our property. And when you got property around that's bad, that's going to take our property down. So I just want to know what can be done about it.
Okay. Could you wait till after the council meeting, and myself and Mr. Johnson will meet with you?
Yeah, I talked to you about it already.
We'll meet with you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Because we have to contact Mr. Patton, who is in codes.
Okay.
And he's not available, but we will meet with you after this session.
Okay, well, I want you to see those pictures though, 'cause
Okay.
that's kind of horrendous.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to my right, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Excuse me, my name is Paulette Strickland. I live at 416 Minnick Street. For the last 7+ years, I've been calling down to the city. I've been calling everybody that I could possibly call in regards to 414 Minnick Street. The house is vacant. People have been breaking into the house. The kids were in there. They had feces in the bathtub, in the toilet. I couldn't come out my back because of the flies. I'm trying to spray to kill all these flies. Well, they came out. They decided, after I yelled at them, they were going to clean that. You can't board a house up and leave that mess still in there. So they boarded the house up. Instead of them boarding the back door so that you can't get in, they boarded the front door, which doesn't make sense because if you board the back door, they can't get in. The people in the front can see if somebody's going in there. Now, I called the police again. I called the mayor's office. I've called everybody. I've been down here fussing about it. They've broken in. The police came out about 2 or 3 days later. It's fine. They came out. They went in, and I said, you know, someone stole the stove. He said, lady, there's a refrigerator laying on the floor. He called it to say, come out here and board it up. Nothing was done. So I came down here. Well, fill this paper out. Well, if the officer contacted the codes to tell them to board it up, why do I have to go through all these changes if it was already, mentioned to them? You know, I have a handicap spot, and it's in front of that house. I have to literally shovel to get to my vehicle. Why do I have to shovel a lot of that payment so I can get into my vehicle at my handicap spot? Doesn't make sense. I spend a lot of money spraying that yard because all the trees and the bushes and whatever is coming over to my side of the property. I shouldn't have to go into my pocket to take care of someone else's. The house was foreclosed. I've been downtown, you know, to the deeds, I've called them. It's still in the previous owner's name. Whoever the bank or banks were never flipped it into their name, so they can't get called and be harassed. This lady has nothing to do with it. You know, if it's foreclosed, someone's in charge. The guy, when the water line broke, thank God I'm above it, the water ran down into everybody's basements. People had to pay for it. People had to go to their insurance companies to get this taken care of. When this guy from the city came out, I'm trying to tell him that it's still in the previous owner's name. Well, I work for the city. I'll find out who it is. While I'm sitting on the porch laughing to myself, he tells the lady, he says, oh, it's in such and such a person's name. And all I said was, that's what I was trying to tell you. It's still in the previous owner's name. Nothing is done. The outside basement door is laying there hanging. The police, when they came, they shut the door. You know, you open your back door and it's like, oh man, somebody's been in here again. I don't want to be awakened at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because someone set a fire in that house. My son's a firefighter. How is he going to feel when he's, oh my God, that's the house next to my mom? You know, this is not fair. If the city's saying they're going to be doing stuff, do it. Would any of you want to live next door to something like that and you don't know who's coming in and out? They've stole the copper tubing. They've taken whatever they wanted out of that property. The yard is a mess.
Okay.
So hopefully somebody can do something.
Well, you made us aware of it, and we certainly will contact the necessary officials. Mayor, has she contacted your office, and have you talked to Dave
I contacted his
Patton?
office, and the lady says, oh, let me transfer you to codes.
Okay.
And I'm like, you can't help me?
Well, Codes is responsible for doing that, for the boarding up of the abandoned homes.
Someone by the name of Dave, I think it
Patton,
was.
Dave Patton.
He was supposed to call me about a week or two ago. I've never heard nothing from him.
Well, you will hear from him. We'll make sure I'll send a message to him.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ron Johnson, 1847 Zarker Street, the chair of the Neighborhood Square Watch Group. I'm trying to get this right because my phone has been blowing up, and please forgive me for not having all of the paperwork that we had to change the model of our community from it doesn't matter whether you're a taxpayer or a renter, this is where you live, to we're telling. You know, and so we suggest that you keep moving on. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have this model all the way down. But my neighbors are calling me because they are now petrified of all of the illegal activity that's going on in the community. The reason why I couldn't have all of the flyers to pass out to every council member was because after the last city council meeting that I attended, me and the youth blanket the whole community with about 250 of those flyers. So, and we mean business. We are telling. We're not sugarcoating nothing. You know, I've talked to these individuals. I asked the community, please give me a chance, and let's see if we can come to some kind of resolvement of this issue. And it's not working. So we need help up there. And we need it desperately because even the seniors, you know, that are retired, the most enjoyment that they really get is to sit on the porch and look at the flowers.
Right, exactly.
You know, so can you please help us?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else to my right? Anyone in the middle, please?
Good evening. My name is Sheila Ford. I live at 2033 Bellevue Road. I'm having an allergic reaction, so I'm going to sit down and talk this evening, okay? It's just seasonal allergies, but I'm taking medication for it. This won't take long. Excuse me. It's okay, you good? Okay. I'd like to talk about neighborliness and the respect that we owe one another. I have a position within this community, as do each of you. I am distressed to a very high degree by what I perceive as untoward action by this body a few weeks ago when an individual was permitted to disparage another individual within this community. I believe in courage. That has defined my life. Courage. I've gotten nowhere without conveying courage in everything I've done. And I'm going to tell you that without courage, without speaking up when you need to speak up, without allowing one person to bully another, you will not survive as a body and do the work that you need to do. Each of you is responsible for conveying, each of you is responsible for watching out for the other of you. I hope you understand that this is a message of neighborliness. Les Ford, my husband, and I, Sheila Ford, have lived here for 23 years. We have contributed a great deal to this community. It pains me to have to sit here today and to say that we will not stand by and be disparaged. You are entitled to your opinions. You are not entitled to your own facts. This is me speaking, Sheila Ford. I was brought up in a place where I learned to speak and to defend myself and my family. Take that to heart. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else in the middle? Oh. Okay, you're not? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Anyone to my left? Thank you. Moving on with the agenda. Approve of minutes, approve the legislative session minutes of August 29, 2007. Or is there any omissions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, minutes stand as approved. Moving on to report to committees. Report from Chair Alec on the work session of September the 5th, 2017.
I am ready.
Mr. Alec, are you ready with your report?
Sure.
Okay.
Budget and Finance had several pieces of legislation up for discussion in the work session on September 5th. But first topic of discussion that we discussed was a mid-year budget review. Present for that discussion was the mayor and Bruce Weber, Marita Kelly from Department of Community and Economic Development, and I'm blanking when I was writing down, Joe from the PA Economic League, as well as our city controller, Charlie DeBrunner. We're basically discussing the budget year to date. Happy to report that cash flow seems to be in a healthy spot for the year coming in, that our budget is on track to be met based on revenues and expenses so far. There is some slight disagreement in terms of where we might end the year by way of revenue, but all models forecast that we will end the year with a potential surplus of money that we can go into our capital improvement plan. There was some discussion about where we need to go from here and kind of the healthy cash fund and what to be doing with those funds going forward. That led into discussion for Resolution 76, which was a budget reallocation. This budget reallocation was due in part to the cash flow being healthy. It was a resolution reallocating money that we would not draw from AMBAC to be able to pay for some debt service perhaps ahead of time. So we had some discussion about that and the potential need at some point to potentially hire a financial advisor for the city. We also had discussion of Resolution 67, which was a resolution approving a contractual relationship between the city treasurer's office and JDK. That was actually tabled. We wanted to table that discussion until a member from the city treasurer's office could be present for that discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alec. Moving on to report from Chair Hodges on the work session of September the 5th, 2017. Ms. Hodges, are you ready with your report?
Yes. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Bill 11, 2017 is an ordinance, Chapter 2, 503 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Harrisburg on the organization of Youth Commission and authorizing the creation of an application process for the selection of its youth members. This project has been spearheaded by Ms. Felton of the Harrisburg School District, along with students from Sci Tech, along with the assistance of Advisor Carl Singleton, President Williams, and myself. There will be 11 youth members in total, 4 from Harrisburg High and Sci Tech, 3 from charter schools and private schools in Harrisburg, and 4 from Harrisburg Career Academies, which are the middle schools. Right today, we actually have one of the students who kind of helped get this started, Miss Sheila Ortiz, who is now a student of Harrisburg University. I invited her to come up and say a minute or two.
Sure. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. So basically, I was part of a mock trial of the Youth City Council where we worked out of Sci Tech High School and we visited the middle schools as well as the John Harris campus. We were run by Ms. Felton, and she basically guided us to work with the community and have partnerships within the community in order to make it better for our youth. And a big part of what we did was visiting Rolling Middle School and gathering their opinions on what they saw around their city. And our mission is basically that we feel it's really important for our youth to have an opinion and feel like they're involved in government decisions. And today, I'm very excited that we are actually hopefully making this legislation come true, because that's been our entire mission this entire time. And I just wanted to kind of persuade the fact that this is going to be very important for our city and very important for our youth, because when you think that they have power in the city to make a difference, it really empowers them, not only when they go out in their communities, but when they're working on their education. They're inspired to do more, act more, and have better knowledge on everything that they're speaking on, and it really gives them a good sense of self to feel like they have, a mission and that they have a voice. And it's very important that our youth know that they have a voice, they have a channel in which they can share it, and they have people that they can directly go to in order to make changes in their city, because the youth perspective is different from the adult perspective and what they see and what they think that needs to be fixed. So, yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you guys are voting on this, and I encourage everyone to look into it, because there's going to be a lot of great things to come out of this legislation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Mr. Singleton or President Williams, did you guys have any comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to report from Chair Johnson on the work session of September the 5th, 2017. Mr. Johnson?
Yes. So at the work session, we discussed 2 bills. One which is actually removed from the agenda tonight, but I will discuss the details of it. And it's Bill 12 of 2017, which is an ordinance amending the City of Harrisburg traffic control map pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the codified ordinances by changing the flow of traffic of Goodwill Drive between Cameron Street and North 12th Street from a 2-way street to a one-way street. Basically, this bill is, as the description describes, due to the completion of development project by Moraine Industries, which is adding a great deal of flow to traffic to that intersection. Generally about 900 people, and will generate about 500 new vehicle trips during the weekdays and 461 trips during the weekday PM hours. So they are installing a traffic light at that particular intersection. So in order for it to work, they would need to change that part of 12th Street to a one-way street. The reason why it was removed from the agenda, because we need a legal opinion on whether to advertise this before we vote on it. And Neil will get back to us with that opinion. If we need to advertise, we will advertise and we'll bring it back for a vote. The next resolution that we discussed was Resolution 55 of 2017, which is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Traffic Planning Design to update traffic signals and school zone permit plans at various locations in the city. So basically, we have been working on this resolution, and we've been working on this project for some time. Some of the intersections that were done include 13th Street and Market Street, North 6th Street and Verbeck Street, 13th Street and Sycamore Street, 13th and Walnut Street, Food School, SR 3007, which is and SR 3012, which is Berry Hill Street and Scott Elementary School. So basically, they were adding different traffic commodities to provide to make the area a little bit more safe. That's like the reflective back paneling you may see at those intersections for nighttime driving. And basically, this will be in part of a bigger project when we look at our different grants to kind of improve those intersections. But with this ordinance, we're asking the services that will be performed will be for a flat fee of $8,990, and basically we're submitting this to approve this professional services agreement with traffic planning and design. I'm recommending that we vote for Resolution 55 tonight. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moving on to report from Chair Williams on the work session of September the 5th, 2017. On September the 5th, 2017, the Administration Committee met to conduct committee business in the City Council work session. Resolution 68, 2017 was handled under the Administration Committee due to the departure of the Economic and Development Chair. Resolution 68, 2017 was a resolution approving the preliminary and final land development plan submitted by Janine Peterson to construct a new school and medical office building with associated improvements and to expand the existing parking lot for Hamilton Health Center. The construction of this school and medical building would provide substantial improvements for this neighborhood, as well as servicing a larger number of residents who are in need of medical service. There's a great need for the school to serve as a learning institution to provide daycare to accommodate the children of toddler age in the Harrisburg area. With the added floors in the construction of this building, they will serve as medical offices for personnel. A vacant lot adjacent to the building will be revitalized to provide additional parking spaces with extra lighting and the inclusion of 30 shade trees. This construction job will provide 20 jobs during the construction and 26 permanent full-time jobs with MBA and WBA participation. All of the conditions have been met by the Planning Commission with pending approval of stormwater by Capital Regional Water. I ask the City Council members up here tonight, please vote in the affirmative for that particular resolution. Moving on to Resolution 62, 2017. It was a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to enter into a contract with Bisoto Incorporated, DBA Seamless Docs, for a subscription to Seamless Gov online form automation platform. The City of Harrisburg is moving forward to modernize their IT system. In an effort to do this, the administration is recommending Seamless Docs, who will convert all of our forms to PDFs, centralize the storage of forms and data, and have an advantage of tracking all of this activity. Seamless Docs will also develop a new city website, digitize work processes, i.e. employment applications, health forms, citizen surveys, business permits, and all other internal and external forms. The total cost for this system will be $5,000 for 6 months and a renewal subscription for a year, $10,000. I would ask all of the council members to please vote in the affirmative for this Resolution 62. Moving on to Bill 10 is an ordinance amending Chapter 2, 701 of the codified ordinances of the City of Harrisburg to limit any person from being elected to the office of mayor more than twice, and to limit any person who held the office of mayor or acted as mayor for a period of more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected as mayor from being elected to the office of mayor more than once, and amending related chapter headings. And I also have a code too, so excuse me. As I've stated previously and quoted in several articles and papers, my primary reason is because of what occurred during the 28-year term of the former mayor. Having the executive power with no accountability and certainly no transparency that went unchecked for that length of time, and the result of his powers impacted this city financially to the brink of bankruptcy. There will be a continued meeting scheduled with a separate bill to address the council, treasurer, and controller and their terms as elected officers in this municipality. So we will have a continued discussion about Bill 10. It's not on the agenda tonight, but I'm going to have it open probably in the next 2 weeks for any other opinions or issues or concerns by the residents regarding Bill 10. That is the end of my report, and I'm moving on with ordinance for first reading. We have none. Ordinance for amendment, we have none. Moving to ordinance for final passage. Bill 6 of 2017, please read into record, Mr. Petrosky.
Bill 6 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Johnson. It's an ordinance for the purpose of reauthorizing within the city of Harrisburg an area designated as a neighborhood improvement district, designating a nonprofit corporation to administer the same, accepting a business plan for the district, and authorizing assessments for the operation thereof, and meeting all other requirements under the Neighborhood Improvement District Act for continuation of the same, and repealing all inconsistent ordinances or part of ordinances.
Any questions or comments, council members, regarding Bill 6? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Alec?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes. Moving on to Bill
Bill
11.
6 passes. Bill 11 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Hodges, seconded by Ms. Williams. It's an ordinance, Chapter 2-503 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg on the organization of the Youth Commission and authorizing the creation of an application process for the selection of its youth members.
Any questions or comments on the vote? Please call the vote, please.
Mr. Alec?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 11 passes.
Moving on, Bill 12 was removed from the agenda. Moving on to resolutions, Resolution 55 of 2017.
Resolution 55 of 2017 was moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Allen. It's a resolution approving a professional service agreement with the Traffic Planning and Design Incorporated to update traffic signal and school zone permit plans at various locations in the city.
Are there any questions or comments on Resolution 55? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 55 passed.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 62.
Resolution 62 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Allett. It's a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to enter into a contract with Pizzoto Inc., doing business as Seamless Stocks, for a subscription to Seamless Gov online form automation platform.
Any questions on Resolution 62? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 62 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 68.
Resolution 68 of 2017 was moved by Mr. Baltimore, seconded by Mr. Allett. It's a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan submitted by Janine Peterson to construct a new school medical office building with associated improvements and to expand the existing parking lot for the Hamilton Health Center.
Any questions or comments on Resolution 68? Please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 68 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 76.
Resolution 76 of 2017 was moved by Mr. Allett, seconded by Ms. Williams. It's a resolution approving the fifth proposed 2017 budget reallocation in order to provide for additional program and equipment allocations.
Any questions or comments on Resolution 76? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson? Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 76 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 87.
Resolution 87 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Hodges, seconded by Ms. Williams. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to submit a grant application for Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society Incorporation Recreation and Parks Technical Assistance Program grant, supported by a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for the Harrisburg Parks Conservancy Project.
That will be placed in Parks and Enrichment Committee. Moving on to Resolution 88.
The Resolution 88 of 2017 was moved by Mr. Allett, seconded by Ms. Hodges. It's a resolution authorizing and approving the formation of a task force to explore community policing policies, law enforcement training initiatives, and creation of a civilian review board.
And that will be placed in Public Safety Committee. Moving on to Resolution 89.
Resolution 89 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Allen. It's a resolution ratifying the submission of an amendment to a previously submitted grant application to the Department of Community Economic Development for the purpose of modifying the fund amount requested and the city's match in connection with the Chestnut Street Revitalization Project.
Any questions or comments on Resolution 89? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes,
Resolution 89 passes.
thank you. Mr. Alec?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to bring up from the floor Resolution 90 of 2017, which is a resolution approving the Second Amendment to a lease licensing and operating agreement between the City of Harrisburg and the National Civil War Museum.
You have a second?
Second.
Questions and comments on the? Call the vote.
Are you voting on it?
No, no, no.
You
we're
just bring it from the floor.
From the floor.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes. That would be placed in Budget and Finance Committee.
No, I thought you said community economic.
I'm sorry, Community Economic Development, that's right. I'm sorry. Looking at Budget and Finance.
Got rid of that.
Look, I'm looking at, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Budget and Finance here, I'm sorry. That will be placed in Community Economic Development Committee. Thank you. Moving on to old business, is there any old business, council members?
Just
Mr. Majors?
real quick.
Yes.
And maybe I need to get to a planning commission meeting, or we need to get an update from them on what's going on with this comprehensive plan. It's something that, when we talked to folks in the community, we had one, we were working on it, and then I know planning wanted to look at it again and go through the process again. I don't know if you could provide any update, or I need to reach out to Jeff. And
We can do both. I think
Okay.
it's important that council speak to the planning commission. From the city's perspective, we have submitted all of the chapters and the entire comprehensive plan to the planning commission. The planning commission has met and received that and has expressed an interest on having workshops and meetings on various topics and chapters, and have a process they want to go forward before they determine what version to officially present to city council. So the process is actually moving along. There have been a series of planning commission meetings. Neil Grover can update you on that. But in a nutshell, the planning commission plans to do more due diligence before it provides council with a final version. Basically, they're looking at reconciling different aspects of the plan and potentially soliciting more feedback to make sure that the final product is one that will really be embraced by the public.
Okay.
So are they planning to meet with us or schedule any type of meeting in the near future?
I think that's the end result. They had a workshop on August the 30th to go through a presentation on the city's various chapters. They had a separate workshop with the prior, I believe they have finished it with the prior vendor. And then they were going to break into small sessions on individual chapters, or one or two at a time. And they're doing that as a body in a workshop format in small committee, just to work through the questions. There were many questions that they had for the city. Mr. Knight and Ms. Parker presented at length on every chapter, including the ones that tie it together. It seemed to be a very positive, constructive meeting, and it seems to be moving forward. So they had approved a timeline in the summer at a commission meeting that they were moving forward. But I think before they come to council, because by law, they present you with a proposed draft.
Okay.
That's what they do. They're trying to get to where they are in agreement on what all the components of the draft should be based on it. And there will be other public meetings that happen on it by law. But it seemed at least to have picked up speed and is moving forward constructively.
Okay.
And I will say, when that meeting continued, they weren't looking for another presentation. So it seemed that their questions were answered at that time, by the planning department.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Majors? Any other questions?
On that.
On that particular issue?
No, not on that
Okay.
particular issue. Like I said, I guess just yes or no. Is there still pending litigation with the individual? I don't want to speak about litigation matters.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Well, well, you've asked me a question, you said you don't want to speak about it.
Yeah.
So-
No, I don't.
Can you discuss
All I want to
that
know
or
is,
should we
is
do
it still
executive
pending?
session?
There is no pending
Okay.
litigation, there is also no resolution
Okay.
of the question.
All right, that's,
Any other old business, council members? Moving on to new business, council members?
I'm not sure if it's considered new business, but I attended we had a compost meeting yesterday. The mayor gave an update to folks at St. Paul's Baptist Church on North 17th Street, so I attended that, and there will be a follow-up tour of the facility on the 20th, I believe. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, actually, I would invite council if they'd like to come, and members of the public, anyone who would like to come. We're actually going to do a site visit to the location, and there'll be some chairs and equipment and other things. There's been a lot of theoretical talk about this composting site, but we're basically bringing a lot of members of the community, both from Harrisburg and Susquehanna Township, to the actual site. Which is really a field, so it's not exactly a site, but we're talking about right next to the DGS composting facility on the old school district property there, right off the bypass.
Okay, when is this meeting, Mayor?
It is September 20th at 5 o'clock. Now, we have I think you're going to announce that we have a council session potentially at 6 o'clock. So I think that will be fine, but to do both for a brief visit. But I think it would be nice for at least the public, and we can leave and come back to that, but it would be nice to have the public there if they'd like to be there.
Now, you cannot, I thought you were doing that on the 19th. The compost meeting is on the 19th.
No, it's on the 20th at 5 o'clock. I understood that council
meeting
wanted
was
to
at
have a hearing.
5:15.
I know we had already announced this. Dave was there. We announced this
Okay.
last night before we heard about the other meeting. I think it's solvable if you don't mind having that meeting at 6, which might make it easier for people to come down here and pay less for parking and do things. So I think we could do both that night. Otherwise, we could have dueling meetings, but I think it would be very possible to see the site at 5 o'clock, to take a brief tour of the site, and leave by 5:30 to come back for the council meeting at 6. But that's up to you. I'm just saying that there is a meeting already announced, planned by Public Works for residents and anyone who'd like to come at 5 o'clock on the 20th.
Okay. Any other new business?
Yeah, just to speak on the composting site, it's kind of, one thing is, I think it's taken a lot of different turns, and I'm not sure of the current status of public opinion or the different governing bodies and their feelings on it. Just everyone knows my experience just working in Susquehanna Township, so I do see a couple different elements to it, and I could see how at one end it could be an advantage for both municipalities, and I think on the other end, I think it's about really kind of explaining to everyone to kind of understand what it can be and what is acceptable for everyone. Because I think the biggest thing that, which was talked about, which kind of scared people a lot, was the food composting. And I even know a couple commissioners, even when I worked there, who was interested in food composting as a component of Penn Waste, but it was just trying to figure that out. But when you hear of food composting and how difficult it is to do it and do it right, I feel like the residents within that community are right to have that concern. And that's something that, really, we don't really have to do, and I think it's about conveying that. The other part about it, too, is just working in the codes field within the Edgemont community and the advantages that it could possibly have to those seniors, and with the trees and all those issues there. But I think the original issue with it to begin with was probably just the level of how the information got to the Edgemont community. And when the information was delivered to the Edgemont community, it almost made it seem like that we were trying to force something upon them, and that's what really probably brought out them out to their commissioners meeting, and they're so to the point where they became superly resistant about it. So it's just my hopes, and I would love. I wasn't aware of a lot of different meetings that were taking place, and I still have a lot of relationships within the community as far as what I've seen, as far as different things within that neighborhood and throughout the township and the advantages through it. So I would love to participate and kind of be able to bring that nuance to it, not to sway anyone to say do it, or not to sway anyone to say do not do it, but just to discuss, what I've seen from working within the township and the possible advantage it could have, and just to, to see it all play out. So if we can just have better communication on like when these meetings are happening, so we can kind of be a little bit more active participants, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I could give just very briefly a general update to the public that maybe have questions about this. First of all, I thought the meeting last night which was with the Shrinerstown neighborhood group and had both residents from the city and from Susquehanna.
I'm sorry, I don't even know what the Shrinerstown neighborhood group is.
It is generally conceived of as, I guess, what would be North 17th Street all the way to the bypass, and then probably, I don't want to define the neighborhood exactly for them, but that was it. That was part of it.
So it's more
Yeah.
city, you talk about for the city.
No, there were residents from both the city and Susquehanna Township there. This was an invitation that the Public Works Department received from a neighborhood group. Okay, so it wasn't, it was their meeting, we came, and it was positive, and people came. But just, and I think Councilman Masden will probably say that it was a very positive meeting. I think there was a lot of really good dialogue exchange, lots of ideas. The main point to get across is that the city has not currently submitted an application to DEP for the composting site. There's been a lot of things talked about and discussed, but that's all part of a process whereby which we hope to reach consensus for a facility that is embraced by both the residents of the city and Susquehanna Township. Nobody is trying to force something on somebody else. So initially, an awful lot of things were discussed, and that and people were rightly concerned about that. But I think the public should know that presently the city is not considering applying for a permit to do food waste composting. We haven't applied yet, but we're only considering applying for leaves and yard waste. So that's come out of the conversation and the concerns that some people have of that. And I think it was a worthy discussion to have, because there are examples in Pennsylvania of food composting that does work, but that's not what we're proposing here. And so just as we have said we will go back to Susquehanna Township before a permit is selected and provide them with the permit and application, discuss it, and we're still getting feedback, we'll also come back and present to City Council before we submit the permit so that everybody understands exactly what's being applied for. But the important thing is, no matter what people are saying and discussing right now, no final decision has been made. We're in the public input stage, and with that, that's the next event that is happening is a site visit on September 20th at 5 o'clock.
And one thing just to point out too, is a lot of people within those communities don't know what composting is and what it looks like. So the only example of where people know how composting is done within that township is just dropping it off at Fort Hunter. And then the guy, he just does what he does. But no
Which
one
is not really a composting site.
Exactly. I know exactly what it is.
Yep.
But I think it's very, very important. Like I said, I'm not a part of those meetings, so I don't know what has been shown.
Well, we would like you to become a part of these meetings, because we could use whatever help we can get. You're right. There's a lot of educational work that has to be done around the issue. And it's not a Harrisburg, Susquehanna issue. It's for everyone to understand. It is important to know that DEP has mandated this be a requirement for the city, and the process basically started because historically the city was burning its yard waste, and that is not a sustainable or appropriate plan for the future. So there is some pressure being exerted, rightly so, on the city to come up with a long-term solution, and that's why we're having the conversation now. It's not just come out of the blue.
Okay. Any other new business, council members? Mr.
Just a couple things real quick. Just for the benefit of the public, on Thursday, September 14th, there's going to be a multimodal transportation discussion about the multimodal transportation improvements in Mulder Square and Allison Hill. That's going to take place Thursday, September 14th at 7 p.m. at First Church of the Brethren, which is located at 219 Hummel Street. Additionally, just another thing for the public, these next 2 weeks are Harrisburg Restaurant Week. We're celebrating 10 years of Harrisburg Restaurant Week, so we want to encourage not just members of the Harrisburg community, but members of the surrounding Central Pennsylvania region to come in and dine in our restaurants downtown and spend some time with us in the city of Harrisburg. I guess lastly, well, I guess it's new, well, it is new business, but I hope that, you know, in the future, we've heard a few things from residents about working on improving our codes enforcement and making sure that when we have residents that have, you know, either neighbors or properties in their area that are overgrown, that we're working to address those issues. I know not just the neighbors that spoke today and residents that spoke today, but you know, we get a lot of feedback on various social media about trying to find some way to improve the way that codes are done in the city. I know that there are a lot of properties in the city that, you know, we may not necessarily have direct access to the owner because they may be owned by, you know, larger corporations or whatever, but we need to try to find a way to improve that so that we can improve the quality of life for residents throughout the city of Harrisburg. One that I've been getting a lot of personal calls about and brought attention to is due to the neighborhood I live in, and you know, and I went to school there, was Bishop McDevitt. I've personally reached out to the facilities director for the new building, which is located, I guess that's Lower Paxton Township, but the diocese and the school and the school still owns the property, which is, I guess, on the, I guess it's the 2000 block, or I don't know if the formal address is 2200 Market Street. So we just want to ensure that, you know, we're doing all we can to make sure that neighbors can have a quality of life and don't have to see, you know, overgrown and blighted properties. So we can, you know, maintain landscaping or do whatever we can. I know not just that property, but other residents have said about overgrown things on electrical lines and et cetera. So however we can work with, council can work with the administration, and we all can work together with codes and everyone to try and address some of those issues so that we don't have a lot of overgrown properties would be helpful. So I don't know if we need to improve a ticketing system or make sure that there's follow-up. I know our codes folks we have new codes guys that are in and they're getting trained and going to get up to speed, but if we could either enforce this or, you know, work with those property owners to come up with some sort of landscaping management plan, that'd be great, so that you know, that we make the city look beautiful.
Can I just say I agree, and I am very sympathetic to the comments that came up tonight. I spent today at a site visit on a overgrown property with an abandoned lot. I did another tree call. We handled a couple via email. So when the requests do come in, they really will be researched by Dave Patton, and you will get a response. You'll see, and a lot of the times it does require a measure of research. Certain things are obvious to the property owners, but we have to do certain due diligence to make sure that we're there. But I think, and I'm going to say it again, but I really think it would be great if council would host a evening where the public could come out specifically just dedicated to codes, meet the new team, ask the questions, ask codes to give a presentation on what they're doing and how they're doing it. I think you could help us facilitate that communication, and that would almost be better to do that if we could before we got into budget season, because then maybe out of that conversation you would come up with other things that we feel we need to prioritize and do. So we've talked about it a bit, but I want to again say that if you do it, we'll help get the word out, and we just need to schedule such an evening.
Right, and I think, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think that we're all open to it. And like I said, this isn't a direct, accusation against anyone. This is so we all can work together.
I
That's
think,
under you. You should-
I don't know if it's under, or we can
It's
do it
under-
jointly.
It's under
yeah.
public safety, and I think
Public
that he
safety.
should, yes.
Take a lead on finding, because I really don't want to do it.
Do it here, right. Yeah, I want to do it in the
Right.
community.
Okay.
Lead on finding a venue and then work with, once I find a venue to work with and schedule.
I really think they'd like to come out, introduce their team, explain what they're doing. This would be good for the public to hear, too.
Absolutely.
Put faces to it, and then take all the questions, and I bet you'd have great turnout. I think it'd be very successcul.
And I think what will be helpful too, just like the similar presentation that Gabe gave tonight.
We'll film it.
You know, a similar presentation could be made to explain,
What they do.
a walkthrough of how you work through it.
Mhm.
The codes
I think
process.
I think on the back end, where we can kind of strive for improvement is, a lot of times, once you submit your complaint, and this is just from my experience working there, you don't know
Because-
what
Right.
the current status is.
Or if it's if they,
Unless
yeah.
you either kind
Yep.
of call, unless you either try to call in, or like a citation has been filed and it's been pending to court.
Yeah,
So I
should
think
be
a lot of
yeah.
times it's like that back and forth communication of what actually happened once my complaint was filed.
I absolutely think we can do a better job of communication, and that is key. I will say that the ones that come through my office, if they aren't just referred, but they actually get research on our end, we do follow up, and we will get responses in writing, and I'm sure that's true when council does. But I understand the general point, which is it has to be, we want that level of customer service with all public inquiries. If they can get that from Codes Department without having to, go to extraordinary measures, it would be really helpful. So I think we can put that front and center with our conversation when we meet.
Okay, thank you.
So by the next council meeting, it's my goal to kind of really have something
In
formal
place.
kind of scheduled.
Okay. It's a good idea.
All righty. Here, another new business. May I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting is officially adjourned.